Hello and welcome to the Busy Bays podcast, where we provide valuable insight and advice on the marketing and other business type questions that auto repair shops encounter as they work towards achieving their goals. Now here's our hosts, Martin Morgan and Becca Hackley. How familiar are you with the local pack? We're not talking about any pack of wolves or the local pack of fresh produce that you can get from your grocery store in town. We're talking about your web presence.
Today, Becca and I will be walking you through an overview of what the local pack is and why it is so important.
So for anyone who may be wondering what the local pack is, Martin, can you help describe where it's located on an online search?
Yeah, so today we're talking about online search. As you mentioned, Becca, we're talking search engine results page. So that is the page of results you get after you type in some type of search, any type of search really. And more importantly for us today, it's the page of results that a potential customer gets after they might type in something like auto repair or transmission repair, car repair, any of those things where they're really looking for local services. And specifically for us, of course, we're talking about auto repair shops. And so the local pack, as you conduct a search or after you conduct a search, and most often in times, again, where we're talking about local services, is that area where you typically will see a map, but then you'll have those 3 or 4 listings of businesses right below there. So you've probably seen your own shop in the local pack and done a search. You may have been testing it yourself and found your shop in there, or you may have seen other shops as well. But it is that grouping right there that has those listings of 3 of the local businesses. And most often it might be below the ads, the Google ads that happen on top if you are doing pay-per-click advertising with Google. And sometimes it's even toward the top of the screen, and that can often happen on mobile.
Yeah, so I'm really familiar with the mobile thing because I'm on my phone a lot. But of course, the local pack has to be important because, well, for my sake, it's right at the top of the Google search and right below the ads. But how often are the people clicking on the businesses listed directly in the local pack versus the organic search results?
Yeah, so interesting, Becky, you say you see the local pack a lot because you're most often on your phone. And in doing the webinar that I had done last week, I was just doing a whole bunch of search testing. And what I did find often on mobile searches is that the local pack was right at the top. So there were some when I was searching for auto repair, for instance, where they didn't even have ads, which was interesting to me. And it really was right there at the top. So clearly that is really valuable real estate. That's one of the reasons that the local pack is so important, especially, again, if you're providing local services, which of course almost all, I think pretty close to all repair shops are. But the other important thing about the local pack is there was a study done within the last 2 years where they had people look for local services, and they brought a whole bunch of people in, put them in front of a computer, and would tell them things like find a towing company. There were some other local services. Auto repair specifically was not one, but they did use towing company. But many other ones that you might think, like a locksmith, I can't remember, like home type services, few other things, and they asked them to find them. And what they found is when people got on that first search engine results page, 33% of the clicks, once they got there, were in the local pack. So 1 out of 3 times, they would click on one of those businesses that showed up in the local pack. So that is definitely significant. For reference point, and you referenced organic search, so 50% of all the clicks happen in organic search, which is most often where you will specifically see a link to your website. So that's still obviously very important, still getting 50% of the clicks, but 33% of the clicks happen right there in the local pack.
So from personal experience, I know why I click there. It's because Google makes it easy on me. I mean, it provides me options that are near me. It makes sense for what I'm searching, specifically for auto repair. But how does Google choose which businesses show up in each designated search?
So I will definitely say there's probably only a handful of people, maybe a little bit more than that, that know exactly what the answer is to that good question that you asked, because Google is definitely not sharing their secrets. So I can't pretend that I know the very specific answer with 100% certainty. But what I can tell you is that we've looked at and analyzed a number of different resources. There are some surveys, some data, some surveys based on data, multiple other data points to look at how does Google determine which in our case shops they're showing in the local pack. And again, we're talking about local services. So we are talking about a local search for local services. And one of the key things is proximity, how close you are to the searcher themselves is definitely one of the key factors, if not the most important factor. But, and certainly 2 years ago when there was a survey, it really focused on that being the number one factor. More recently, there's been a 2020 survey where now the differences between these three are not big. So even now, to say that proximity is number three, it's not like proximity is number three by a large margin. No, the top three were about all the same level. So proximity is still really important. But two other things that were really important are Google My Business related factors like keywords, categories, and then also Google reviews, especially related to the number of the count, the number of reviews, the stars. And I think the important thing to remember here is that what Google's trying to do is it's trying to narrow down the consideration set for people as much as possible based on what they specifically put in the search box, or however they're putting something in search, and the signals that are given from the potential shops that would show up in the local pack. So any specific signals that you can give that are going to match up with what the person types in there is going to increase the likelihood that you're going to show up in the local pack, or that one of your competitors might show up in the local pack. So they're really focusing on keywords and user intent. And the important thing to think about is how many millions, billions of searches get conducted on Google in a fairly short period of time. And they're using all of that data to determine how they show any local business or any business, but specifically for us again today, repair shops within that local pack. So they're trying to best understand when somebody searches for auto repair, we showed these results in the local pack. This is what they do. This is how we're going to react next time, and we're going to see what happens. So they've got the data that shows them what people are looking for, and they use that every single time. And that helps determine who shows up where in the local pack.
That's a lot to unpack. So Martin talked about proximity.
Yes, it sure is.
But we're going to do it. We can unpack it. So proximity, and then as well as the GMB or the Google My Business profile and your Google reviews. So those are three things that Martin kind of just put in a suitcase, and I'm restating them just so I can best follow along too. And then let's start with the GMB, so the Google My Business profile. We've talked about this through our blogs, podcasts, webinars, just how important it is to have a Google My Business profile, and that is a talk for another day. But Martin, why is it important specifically in relation to having a GMB for the local pack?
So important to note, the information that is included in the local pack is taken directly from the Google My Business profile. So that's one of the key factors that Google uses to determine where people show up in the local pack is they take that information directly from your Google My Business profile. So an important note, if you don't have a Google My Business profile, you're never going to show up in the local pack. So you've got to make sure you've got that profile in order to get you to show up in the local pack.
Yeah, geez. Okay, so not even having a GMB, that just completely takes you out of the running of being in that first little chunk of section when I'm looking up auto repair on my phone. Like that's what you're saying?
Absolutely. Yep,
Oh,
absolutely
man.
correct. So you've got to get in there if you haven't already, or maybe you haven't looked at it recently. You've got to get into that profile and update it and make sure that it's going to represent you well to get you in the local pack.
And especially with updates, you said, Martin, if things are wrong, like your phone number, your address, website, people are going to be not happy when they can't contact you. So I will put a little gold star by that. Make sure your GMB is updated.
Yes, absolutely. And that's a good point about the contact information, Becca, referred to as NAP, name, address, phone. You want to make sure that that is consistent across all of your online platforms.
So I remember you saying this. I think it was actually in a blog that was about the local pack. You said Google will reward you if you play by their rules. And that is so true, isn't it?
Yep. That it's absolutely true. So if you use the tools that Google gives you from that standpoint, especially related to the Google My Business profile, then they're going to be more likely to reward you with good performance in the local pack.
So in relation to a shop's Google My Business profile, the industry survey referenced the importance of Google reviews. So as we know, people are going to read and for the most part trust what the reviews are going to say. So of course shops need reviews for credibility purposes, but the shops also need to be responding to the reviews because this is going to help their chance of getting into the local pack too.
Yes, absolutely correct. And I encourage you to think about reviews in two different ways. And we always consider it from the potential customer standpoint, which is primarily the primary importance. Potential customers are looking at reviews as much, if not more, than they ever have. And those reviews are important. So obviously the number matters and good reviews matter because people want to see a high star rating. You know, some people may say that they've got some sort of threshold. They may say, I'm not going to look at any place unless it's higher than a 4 or 5. Let's throw out a number and just say. But it's important that you have those. People are going to read those reviews. They're going to consider what people are saying about it. So you mentioned the importance of responding, and absolutely, you should be responding to reviews, both the good and the bad. Of course, the good ones are most often a little easier to respond to. Nice, friendly response. Important, though, that you respond to the bad ones, and you want to keep it professional, and you don't want to get in any sort of crossfire situation. Often the best approach is to work to take that offline and encourage somebody to reach out to you at a time where you can both talk through potential issues. But the other thing that's important is you also want to think about it from the standpoint of the reviews are for Google. And what I mean by that is Google uses all of the information that are included in those reviews. It scans over all that info, and it's going to use that very similarly to how it's going to use all the content that you have on your website to determine where it may want to place you in the local path. So if it sees that you've got lots of reference to transmission jobs from people who have given you reviews, then if somebody's searching for a transmission, then Google is going to be more likely to show you in the local pack. So what you can do with that is you can encourage your customers when they give reviews, when you're asking for a review, to include the services that you provided. And then you can also do that yourself. So, maybe somebody doesn't reference that. Susie Smith gives you a 5-star review and talks about your good customer service and everything. And that's awesome. And in your response to Susie, you can say, Susie, we are so glad that you brought your 2014 Honda Civic in for the transmission service we were happy to see you and happy to be able to serve you and your vehicle and get it back on the road for you and working in top-notch condition. So you can also utilize those references, and Google's going to see that as well, and that's going to help you again as Google works to try to narrow down to as specific as possible the keywords and the intent that a searcher has.
And in the eyes of your customer, so I'm going to pretend I'm your customer because I need to get my car fixed too, but also as an avid Googler, as I like to call myself,
yep.
I'm looking for reviews specifically that are going to relate to what I'm looking for. So what I mean by that is you talked about if Susie comes in and gets her 2014 Honda Civic, or let's say transmission work done, and I need to also bring in my car, I am going to look for those reviews with those keywords in it, and that's going to trigger my decision making of, one, how are you responding to the reviews? Two, is it service that I need? Well, yes, it is. So that gives me one more reason why I'm going to go further into the review and find you and find your website. And then I'm going to contact you to come in for the service. So the reviews are just the starting point to the customer's decision making, and I hope that makes sense, Martin.
Yeah, you're absolutely right, Becca. We want to see ourselves in those reviews. We want to see the service that we're looking for. That maybe it's specific to make a model, maybe it's a specific type of service. You're exactly right.
So after we hit on the Google My Business as well as the Google reviews, we are going to just jump right into the proximity of the searcher. So when I've actually chatted with shop owners themselves, I've been like, hey, I found you on page 2 of Google for auto repair in XYZ area. I mean, really down to the point of the community that they're in. But they always thought maybe that they were showing up on page 1 instead of the page 2 where I found them. How come this happens?
Yeah. So this is where that proximity to the searcher really comes into play. For the most part, we still believe that proximity to the searcher is the number one factor in what shops will show up in the local pack. So there are variables there depending on how somebody searches. But let's say somebody specifically searches for something like auto repair or auto repair near me. In those cases, you can do it and you can look and you will almost always see 3 shops show up in order from closest to, second closest to third closest to wherever you are. Now that's not 100%, but more often than not, that's how it shows up. That is exactly why when you search for auto repair from within your shop shows up first because your shop is closest to the searcher. So that is why if you're in your shop, you're going to show up first. Go a mile or 2 down the road and try to search again and see what happens. On the last webinar I referenced earlier that I did, we were doing some testing three or 4 weeks ago, and so I just was able to set up my browser so I can do searches from different locations and pick any location basically I think on the map, and I can do a search from it. So I did a search from a random spot in downtown Atlanta. I did a search from Churchill Downs in Louisville. Did a search from Fenway Park in Boston. And every time I would do these searches, sure enough, it would show up first closest, second closest, third closest. So it just demonstrates over and over. I did one from my home that for the most part, it is, again, proximity to the searcher that's showing up. But the important part, which is one that I mentioned earlier, is that Google's looking for signals to winnow down the potential shops that might show up there. So if you're giving good signals and somebody is specifically searching for something, maybe more closely than just auto repair, you're going to give yourself the chance to be shown there. But without that, Google just has a big category. It's got all these auto repair shops. Certainly what they found over time is that more often than not, people are going to click on the one that's closest. People have shown more often than not, they want to go to the shop that's closest to them. So that's what Google shows. And they're looking at, an unbelievable amount of data that shows them this is what people are looking for. So that's pretty much what it shows. The other fun thing I did is, I did searches not very far from each other, and you could see automatically 3 completely different shops would show up. So, that proximity to the searcher is still very important.
Yes, so always remember when you're in your shop and you're searching, when somebody calls you from your website company or maybe someone else trying to work with you, really keep in mind that location of where you are searching from matters. And if a shop isn't super thrilled about where they're searching in the local pack, how can they improve the importance of the search?
So here's some key tips. And I mentioned, and we talked about proximity to searcher. We were just talking about that. But I don't want you to just hear that and throw up your hands and say, oh, well, all that matters is how close I am. Because that is not necessarily the case. And especially as it comes to more specific searches. So as people might be searching for something like transmission, like we said, maybe engine repair, maybe brake repair, any of those things, you can give yourself a good chance of showing up. Or there's nothing that says Google can't decide next week that they're seeing more and more people click on some of the things that are showing up in the local pack for a different reason. And proximity does not seem to be the number one thing that they're focused on. You want to make sure that your shop is positioned to take advantage of those opportunities, or as Google may change things. So some of the ways that you can do that all tie in to what I've mentioned as far as signals. So your category, in almost all cases, you're probably going to choose auto repair shop as one of the main categories. But if for some reason there's a category there that fits you better, pick the category that works. You've got the opportunity on your Google My Business profile to put in a description. So a description, you've got a lot of words you can potentially use there, and you can use that description to really highlight your shop, but also the services that you want to provide. Again, if you really want to focus on transmission jobs, or let's say engine jobs, you want to emphasize that in your description, because as Google combs through that and they see transmission, they're going to think, oh, well, this person searched for transmission. This shop has transmission, a lot in the description. We're going to be more likely to show this one. Now, Google doesn't technically think that. The algorithm will factor it in, but that may help you. Another thing I want to place a big emphasis on, services. So services is something that's fairly new that Google's built into the Google My Business profile, and it is a big opportunity for you to highlight your services, because lots of shops out there are not using this, and I've got to believe that this is going to be one of the key signals that Google uses, so that they know if somebody searches for something that's not as generic, let's say, as auto repair, but is a little more specific, let's say brake repair, and you have brakes highlighted there, then you're going to be more likely to show up in that local pack, the same way that if somebody searches for an auto repair service, and I've seen this in results from my house, that the shops that are categorized as auto repair shop are going to show higher than something categorized as tire shop, even if the tire shop is closer, because I've sent Google the signal that I'm looking for auto repair. I'm not looking for tires or some sort of tire service. So Google's going to show the auto repair higher, the same way that they will if you've selected services that match what the user is searching for. So look at those services. We talked a fair amount of... Yeah, go ahead, Becca. Sorry.
No, you're fine. With services, do you know if you can list, or how many you can list? Like if you want to say oil change, transmission, or if you have like 3 main jobs that you work on, or is it solely one service you want to list there?
I think you want to list as many as you can.
Okay.
And you shouldn't claim service that you don't offer. And I don't believe there's a limit, but anything that you do offer, you want to include, because again, I can't say that I specifically know the Google algorithm, but I don't think Google's going to penalize you. Let's say, because I understand what you mean, Becca. We could say, okay, your service, whatever you put, services is worth 10 points. And if you just put 1, then you have 10 points toward 1. But if you pick 10, are you then diluting all your points? So each one of them only counts for 1 point. I don't believe that to be the case. I think Google will use any services that you have as a signal when it comes to search and searching.
Thank you.
The one that, and we talked about reviews. That was another thing that I have as an important thing. So that's not to minimize reviews. Ask for reviews, ask for them to reference the services, respond as we've talked about.
And a huge thing too with like the GMB is, so obviously everything that Martin talked about with the category and the services, the description, but if you have a website, please, well, one, I hope you have a website, but please link the website to your Google My Business profile, because that is just credibility galore.
It is, and it's important, and it's also another signal. So if you've probably heard me talk anywhere, you've heard me say that Google My Business and your website are your 1-2 punch for your online presence. They complement each other and they help each other perform well. And there are signals, at least, again, the experts believe there are signals from your website that help you show up in local paths. So those spiders, they can crawl a lot of data really fast. So it's not as if they're limited. So they're checking on those signals as well. And all these signals that we're talking about here to help you with Google My Business and then showing up in the local path, they're all going to help your website search better as well. So as Becca said, make sure you've got that link to your website in your Google My Business profile.
So we went over a lot of steps just to help improve your shop's ranking within the local pack, going with the proximity of searcher, the GMB, the Google My Business profile, as well as responding and having Google reviews. And recently, Martin has written a blog as well. Just the other week, did a webinar on local search tips and tricks for the local pack. So if you're looking for more resources or advice, you can head over to our website, which is repairshopwebsites.com. You can check out our resource center tab. It's right at the top. And if you click on that, it will take you to blogs, webinars, infographics, and also podcasts that we have in relation to these topics. So please take a look. And as always, reach out to Martin. He loves answering these questions, and he will make sure to take care of you and any of the questions or concerns that you may have in relation to your shop.
Yes, please reach out to me. I'm happy to help. I'm talking about these things and have a passion for it. I love helping shops. I love helping them figure out things that are going to help them when it comes to their online presence and help them get more business. So please feel free to reach out when we can be of help.
Thank you for listening to the Busy Bays podcast. If you want more information about this, please visit myrsw.com and go to our resource center. We plan on hosting a podcast each month, so subscribe so you don't miss out. Also, I just have one last favor to ask of you. It would mean a lot to us if you would share this with your friends or another shop. Our goal is to help auto repair shops succeed, so you can help us achieve this goal by just telling someone else about the show. Thanks again. Have a great day.